Hello everyone, I am T. Virupakshanand and welcome to the 7th session of GeoVarta organized by Banaras Hindu University Geophysical Society. This event is comprised of very fine and brief lectures of eminent personalities in the field of earth sciences. And earlier we had lectures with several professors, scientists and professionals, and you can watch their lectures on our YouTube channel, which is SEGBHU. Well, in continuation, today we have another very wonderful guest, Dr. Nimisha Vedanti. Ma'am is an alumni of BHU and a recipient of ISCA Young Scientist Award, CSIR Young Scientist Award, National Geoscience Award, and Krishnan Gold Medal 2017. Her primary research interests are hydrocarbon exploration and reservoir geophysics. Presently, she is in charge of Shallow Seismic Group at NJRI. Today's lecture is on the topic deconvolution of Webrosius seismic data, and it will be really informative. At the end of the lecture, we have also organized a brief question and answer session, and for that you can either use your chat box or switch on your mics and ask the question. We have also arranged a feedback form, and for our GeoArcation participants it is mandatory so that we can mark your attendance and give you certificates. Also, in between the lecture, I would request you to do not switch on your mics because it would be really disturbing for the lecture. So that's all the announcement part, and I think now ma'am will start her lecture. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to deliver a talk for BHU students. In fact, it's always a pleasure to talk to BHU students, being my alma mater. And that's the reason I opted for a fundamental topic rather than going deep into the research, because that's how you connect more with the students rather than showing some fancy research outputs. So already, my topic of talk is deconvolution of vibroseis seismic data. Let me admit that this is a Blackboard presentation. I would say it's not really a good topic for a virtual presentation, but I'll try to do justice as much as I can. So I'm assuming many of you are first year students, but you must be knowing what is a seismic exploration survey, and these pictures explain itself that how seismic exploration survey is done. You all know that what type of waves are generated, how reflected and refracted waves carry information about velocities of the layers and what all we do with that. But very few people might be knowing that what is the importance of using a different source while generating a seismic wave, which is injected inside the ground, or which is the emitted signal from the source. So here you see there are three sources. One is a sound wave source, maybe the air gun or water gun, whatever being used for marine survey, then a hammer, and then a truck is shown here, which is known as the vibrator, which shakes the ground and generates the same type of sound waves which can be used for exploration survey. Dynamite I have not shown because of many environmental issues. Now the use of explosive source is kind of banned. Very limited areas have permission to use the explosive source. So nowadays most of the land surveys are being done by using the vibrator seismic source. So whether you use any source, you must be knowing that the convolution model is same for seismic, that you impound earth with some source, a wavelet is generated, which is convolved with the reflectivity series, and then you get a seismic trace, something like this. So here it is shown that the earth is shown as an increasing density velocity layers. So you see everywhere it is positive acoustic impedance as shown here in the reflectivity. Of course, the amplitude is different depending upon the acoustic impedance contrast between these two layers. So you in your first year classes, you might have learned that how the convolution of time series is done, that you have these coefficients coming from the source wavelet. Then you have these coefficients coming from the reflectivity series. You convolve either using that sliding or folding, whatever operation you like, and you generate an output time series, which is in this case is the seismic trace. So you have a source, you have a reflectivity, and then you have the output, which is the which is the seismogram. So in real earth also you have several layers, each will have its own reflectivity values. So your time series, your wavelet will convolve with that, and then the final seismogram you will get, and that's what happens in any method. Now the aim of the deconvolution is to know what is there in this reflectivity by removing the source effect. So you have this, the output series, you want to know this, you have to remove this. So that becomes a kind of inverse problem. You already have a signal ready with you, and you know what output you want. In most of the cases, we like to have a spike output, because with the spike, the resolution is high. So we want the wavelet to be spiked. So here in the output, you have seen the 0 and 1 is written. That's how a spike is defined. But so you already know the output. So you have to use some inverse filtering option to derive the deconvolution operator. These coefficients will come. If you derive this deconvolution operator, and then you convolve with the received waveform, the coefficients of this recorded waveform, you should get a spike. So that's how the spiking deconvolution work in practical things. So I would suggest that you read this deconvolution and inverse theory to brush up all these concepts, that how, what are the different type of deconvolution, how it is done in practice. But I'm assuming you already know these type of operations. So to derive these operators, that what should be the coefficient value, you need to do some inverse filtering, that you know the output, you know you have the recorded data, and then you design an inverse filter to compute these coefficients, so which you can convolve with recorded waveform, and then see whether your spike is generated or not. So that's how it works. But the source, what I have shown you in the beginning, is a vibrator. It's not a spike source, which can be defined by 0 and 1, something like this. It's not an impulse. So this is the picture of our vibrator, what we have in our group, which is a source of P wave source. And here you see the base plate, it moves in up and down this vertical direction, and the P waves are generated. We have another vibrator which also generates the secondary waves also, but this one is limited only for the compressional waves, and it's a huge equipment which cannot be used like in a lot of hard, means difficult terrains. So you see that the path should be cleared for this vibrator to move. There are a lot of restrictions for this movement. How this vibrator works is in the base plate, what is shown here, where this Hemi 50 is written, which moves up and down. There is a reaction mass which moves, and then which is responsible for moving the base plate in up and down, or in the horizontal direction for generation of S waves. I'm not going into too much detail of how this movement happens, because that is a lot of mechanical engineering involved in that. So our interest is the waves which are generated, not how the reaction mass moves. The source signal, what is generated after that up and down movement of that base plate, is something like this, which you can see sinusoid. Here I have shown only 1 to 5 hertz, but actually there will be lot many frequencies. If I show all that, the screen will be completely black. So it's just for demonstration that 1 to 5 hertz is shown. We'll have many. So this signal, you can see, is not impulsive. It has a duration of few seconds. Now this very first assumption contradicts with the fact that in seismic exploration, we try to detect the impulse response of the earth, because with the vibrator there is no impulse response. I hope you all know what is impulse. That here it is shown also, that in time domain, if you write, it is like at 0 time, it has the maximum energy, like an explosive is very close to this. And in amplitudes, if you take in the frequency domain, if you see the amplitude spectrum, it will be all flat, the flat spectrum, and the phase will be 0. The phase spectrum will be 0. But to generate an impulse like this, we need infinite amount of energy in the field, which is not possible. Even the highest energy explosives, dynamite, whatever people had been using for explosive source, even they cannot generate a perfect impulse. Even what they generate is also like a near impulse source, which is like this. So it is not just like a spike, but of course can be approximated. So this probably you might have seen in your textbook that the seismic convolution is defined like that, that a source pulse is convolved with the reflectivity and the seismic trace is generated. But our source pulse is not like that. It is a band limited expanded impulse. Now, what has happened in this is we do have a flat amplitude spectrum in the sweep signal, but our phase spectrum is not zero. So that creates a lot of the problem. Again, I'm showing this picture so that you remember that how this sweep signal, the source signature looks like. Here you can see that the energy density is reduced by delaying each frequency component with time delays. So you see that all the frequencies, these higher frequencies are delayed. This is like an example of the upsweep, which starts with lower frequency and goes for the higher one. You can also have the downsweep also, which starts with higher frequencies and set the lower one. Either way, it's okay. But the main idea is that delaying each frequency content. So energy density of the signal is reduced. Now, what happens is, though this energy density is reduced, the amplitude spectrum remains constant because that depends upon the energy content becomes constant because it depends upon the amplitude spectrum of the whole signal, which is not changing. Now, when we design a sweep, we have to give some lower frequency limits and the higher frequency limits. That depends upon our interest. So that I will explain maybe later, that depending upon our target or our aim of the survey, we decide that what will be our target frequencies. But the vibrator itself will have certain constraints on the frequencies. The lower frequency limit, that a vibrator cannot operate less than that frequency, comes from again the mechanical constraints of the vibrator system, and the higher frequency limit comes from the mass and stiffness of the base plate. So there is a lot of research going on the vibrator mechanical engineering side to increase that, so that a broadband spectrum of data can be acquired. So now right now the vibrator which we have, we generally do not operate it less than 10 hertz, because we see there are some mechanical engineering issues come up, and we do not operate it beyond 200 hertz. Again, we see some problems with the base plate and all. So that's how, because of that instrument constraint, we are compromising with something around 10 to 200 maximum bandwidth. But if we want to detect very thin layers, we would like to go beyond the 200 hertz. But right now the constant is coming because of the vibrator. Of course, we have another operator which can operate up to 450 hertz also. But even at that high frequency, we have observed some instability. So when we have the sweep, such a broad band limited impulse, the entire processing concept, that is based upon kind of impulse function, like any signal which is close to a wavelet which looks very close to the impulse. Now, and it is also assumed that there is no phase spectrum. But in the sweep, we have to compromise with that. So we have to get rid of these issues by using a cross correlation process, so that the different phases coming different phases coming of different frequencies, that can be avoided when we go for the further processing, and that's how the cross correlation helps us. I will show how it works. Before I explain that how we do the cross correlation, I will again explain that what is the convolution model for vibrosys. So this equation might be little new for you because some new terms are there, but you see the xt is the recorded trace. RT is the Earth's reflectivity that you already know with any standard convolution equation. Then you must be having a second term as a wavelet plus noise. So here, since we do not have a wavelet, we have written the ST, which is the sweep, which is a function of time. I have also included earth filter here because it becomes important, especially when we operate vibrator at the higher frequencies, and then the earth filter becomes very important. I'll explain you later that why it becomes important. So this is nothing but the standard seismic convolution model. Only these two terms are added here. So for now, if we forget about the noise and we forget about the earth filter, we simply consider the XT, the standard recorded geophone response. And if we cross correlate the sweep with that, we get a signal called as, I just called it as a CT, which is also a function of time. So the cross correlation of sweep with the recorded geophone, recorded seismogram gives a function CT, which can also be written if you can expand xt, which is a convolution of reflectivity and the sweep, and this is the again the cross correlation symbol here. So I hope that you have read about that what is cross correlation, that you can take the cross correlation, you can convert the cross correlation as a multiplication operator by using a complex conjugate of the sweep signal. So that's what the concept we have used here. And here you can see then in frequency domain, the this signal can be written like the complex in terms of complex conjugate of the sweep. And you can also expand this in terms of reflectivity if you like. So the reflectivity here in the frequency domain, that becomes the Earth's response, and you will have two here you will get spectrum amplitude spectrum of the sweep. And we know that the amplitude spectrum of the band limited sweep is constant, that we have seen already. So what is this value is just a scalar, just like a scaling factor. It's a constant. It doesn't vary. So if we consider this as a constant, then the Fourier I can say the Fourier transform of the cross correlated signal is nothing but an scaled impulse response of the Earth. So this is what we try to do in any deconvolution, that we try to estimate the Earth's impulse response by removing all other effects, right? So here with the this is of course happening in the frequency domain here, but the take home message is the same, that by cross correlating we have now the Earth's impulse response, which is nothing but the scale, in the cross correlated function in the frequency domain is nothing but the scaled version of the amplitude spectrum of the source signal. So this is a kind of, we can say that it is a special deconvolution process in which we exploit the fact that the amplitude spectrum is constant. This value becomes constant. That's how we can call it scaled. Otherwise, we won't be able to call it like that. Now, this has saved us from designing the deconvolution filters, this cross correlation process, and that's why we call it as a vibrosis deconvolution process, because we were able to remove the effect of source, and we are able to see the effect of the Earth's impulse response just by using a cross correlation function without using any deconvolution, without designing any deconvolution filter. So another key point we can say that, see, it is difficult to generate a perfect impulse because you need an infinite energy for that to generate in the field. But it is possible to emit a signal with flat amplitude spectrum and random or arbitrary phase spectrum and still obtain the band limited impulse response of the Earth as shown in the previous slide, if the phase spectrum of the source wavelet is known. And in the vibrosis, of course, the source wavelet is known because we design the source wavelet, we give it to the vibrator system. So of course, the source wavelet is known in this case. So whatever wavelet we design that we want this type of sweep to be generated is given to a vibrator feedback system, we call it. Just do not bother about all these boxes. So these are some electronics, the internal mechanisms of the vibrosis system. But the designed sweep, which we design on the basis of our target, suppose we want to go for a deeper one, we would like to have more lower frequencies in the sweep. If we want, if our targets are deep, of course, we would like to go for a longer duration sweep. So like that, we decide the frequency band, the type, and the how much time it will vibrate. All those things we decide and design the sweep, which is given to the vibrator feedback system. And ideally, the vibrator should generate the signal which is same like what is the input given here. But that doesn't happen because of many non-linearities in the vibrator system. The whatever comes out of the feedback system, that sweep which is coming here, you see the FT signal, this is not equal to what we decide to emit from the vibrator. So there is again an uncertainty here. And this is an engineering problem that happens because of that internal vibrator system that has nothing to do with any geophysical issues. Now, what happens if okay? So when we generate the sweep, again we have to cross correlate the signal which is given here. If you remember the previous slides, here the xt, this. Now I am writing in terms of cross correlation. The same equation, it is being written as a cross correlation here, because we are cross correlating that entire seismic trace with the sweep. So even with noise also we are cross correlating it. Now if you cross correlate sweep with sweep, a clouder wavelet is generated. Now this becomes the wavelet. I'm not sure if it is confusing or you are able to understand. If you must be knowing the autocorrelation and cross correlation function, I'm assuming. So clouder wavelet is defined by the autocorrelation function, which is the autocorrelation of the sweep with itself. I sometimes may call it cross correlation also. I will explain you why. But this equation is the same, the standard equation where we have recorded seismogram, which is given as the reflectivity, which is convolved with the source wavelet. And after autocorrelating the sweep with itself, we have this wavelet, which is nothing but the same wavelet what we use in the standard convolution model. So the rest of it, the equation is same. Only this is written in terms of cross correlation output, because right now after cross correlating the geophone response with the sweep, we do not have this function as a geophone response. This is the cross correlated output of the geophone response with the sweep. So that's why this core in suffix is written here. Rest other terms you already know. This is it's a minimum phase filtering effect. This is noise. But if you remove all that, it is nothing but the simple equation where the wavelet is cross correlation or autocorrelation of the sweep. Here it is written more clearly that if you correlate the sweep with itself, you will get the clouder wavelet. Now this is the wavelet which is being considered in the further processing. So till now, whatever we have discussed, these all are just the pre-processing steps. All these are applied before bringing data for the processing. And many people just start using processing algorithms on that without really knowing that what exactly is the wavelet there and what has already done in the pre-processing on that. So once your cross-correlated data is ready, it looks like this. Now this is the raw data. What most of the processing people will call, this is the raw data, where you have this ground roll, you have refraction, you have the direct views, all type of views are there. This is a short gather. But before arriving this, actually you record the uncorrelated data, which looks like this. It's like looks like a pure noise, and the record length will be too long. Like in this case, it was 18 seconds corresponding to sweep, whatever we have taken. You don't see any wave, nothing, unless you cross correlate it with the sweep. So that is the kind of pre-processing required before you go for any kind of any processing step. So having said that, okay, the main aim is to generate data like this after the pre-processing, after doing the vibrosis deconvolution. That is the aim of the vibrosis deconvolution, to generate a short gather, something like this. But what problems we face? As I said earlier, that the sweep which we design, which should be emitted from the vibrator, it doesn't get emitted by the vibrator. It will have a different phase. It will have some noise. I will show what all happens. Then second thing is, when we use the cross correlation function, there's a zero phase clouder wavelet is generated. Because of that cross correlation process, that all the phase information gets away, and a zero phase clouder wavelet is generated. Now the zero phase clouder wavelet is undesired. We need, ideally we need a minimum phase wavelet, because whatever when it gets convolved with the earth's minimum phase response, it gives a mixed phase wavelet, which gives again lots of noise. So we face problem with due to this in the processing. So sometimes people do change the zero phase clouder wavelet to a minimum phase wavelet by doing some phase shift or using some algorithms, but any such adjustment produces processing noise, and sometimes it's very high. Sometimes if the recorded sweep which comes out of the vibrator system, why I'm calling this as the recorded sweep, because whatever output comes from the vibrator, that is recorded by a recording instrument. So in the scientific terminology, we do not call it as a vibrator feedback signal. Rather for any geophysicist, it is easy to understand it as a recorded sweep, which geophone records it, which was being emitted by the vibrator. And the predetermined sweep is the theoretical sweep which we have designed, which ideally vibrator should have emitted. So these are two different terminologies. So they differ. Now if they differ largely, there will be a problem in the detection of the reflections and the problem in the interpretation. So this is one pilot sweep I show here. Just there are some parameters. You can select the parameter depending upon your interest. But what happens when when the pilot goes to the vibrator system? Uh, Sorry, some noise is coming. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Okay.
It was a problem from my side, ma'am. The internet was lost.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Please continue, ma'am.
Okay. So what I was discussing is the pilot and the recorded sweep. That pilot is the one what we design, and we want the vibrator system to emit as a signal, in which you see the spectrum is so clear, the right side picture. But what vibrator emits is a little different. You see a lot of noise in that, in the right panel down. So this is how the problem starts. Here also you can see the upper one is the ideal one which we want vibrator to emit, but the recorded one, it has got lots of harmonic
Excuse
distortion.
me, ma'am. Ma'am,
Ma'am.
we can't see your screen actually.
Okay. Can you see the screen now? Be cross correlated. So again, coming back to the two options, that either we can use in that equation the clouder wavelet which comes from the pilot sweep, or the wavelet which comes from the recorded sweep. And how does it matter? I will show in the next slide that the clouder wavelet, which is the here this is the cross correlation of the recorded sweep and the predetermined sweep, the theoretical one which we designed, correlation of recorded sweep which itself. So that's how these two differ. And as you have seen, that the recorded sweep is noisy, so which makes the wavelet also very noisy. Here you see the lower one, you have lots of these ringing effects, and this makes data more noisy if it is convolved with the trace. This is the spectrum of the wavelet. You see already a lot of noise is there, while if we use the pilot sweep, the noise is less. And the same effect you will have on the trace. If you convolve that the lower one, this with the trace, you will have a noisy cross correlated trace. So ideally it should be upper one, but what we get in if we correlate with the recorded sweep, we get something like this. And again, this is the final output in the short gathers. You see there is here in the screen, you may not be able to see the kind of noises it is enhancing. But if you look into the amplitude spectra, it is very clear that if you are using the recorded sweep, which is coming out of the vibrator system, this all noise is coming. However, if you are using your theoretical sweep, the predetermined sweep, your amplitude spectrum looks perfect. So we recommend that the pilot sweep should be used instead of a recorded sweep for the at the time of acquisition of the data, because in all this process happens during the acquisition itself. When the data comes to the processing center, it is already correlated, so there will not be any scope to change that. So this should be done in the field itself. And even if there are sometimes chances that vibrator recording unit will have some issues, so that can also be fixed by contacting the vibrator agency, and they will try to fix these differences. But even then you will have the difference, and it is advisable to correlate the data with the predetermined sweep rather than what is coming out of the vibrator system. Now, second problem what I discussed earlier is the effect of minimum phase earth filter. If you see the figure here, you probably know that what happens when a complete broad spectrum of a signal is emitted, and when it goes inside the earth, it slowly loses its spikiness, and this is the minimum phase earth filter. You see that after certain times, entire spikiness is gone, and you will have, like you see the after 5 seconds, the kind of signal you have. So it gets stretched due to loss of the high frequencies. Now this is a problem. Before that, I just wanted to make sure that you understand what is the minimum phase signal, what is mixed phase signal, what is zero phase signal. So which is shown here. The first one is minimum phase. Second one is the mixed phase. Mixed phase you can have many, but this is one example shown here. Third one is the maximum phase, and the fourth one is the zero phase. And our Claudel wavelet, what comes after the cross correlation function is it comes in a zero phase. Okay. So again, if I show the same equation, the cross-correlated equation, the x core t represents the response, the geophone response, which is already cross-correlated with the sweep. Now I will say that with the pilot sweep, because that was one conclusion from the all previous slides, that we will use the pilot sweep for the cross-correlation function. So that's why the Kp, the Clowder wavelet coming from the predetermined sweep, is written. Now we know that earth is the minimum phase filter, so that's why in the suffix in this equation E minimum is written, and the Clowder wavelet is a zero phase wavelet. So if you combine together, the wavelet which is generated is a mixed phase wavelet. Now this is a problem because in whatever further processing you do, you need a minimum phase output here, because all your deconvolution and other algorithms, they assume that your data is minimum, so your wavelet is minimum phase, otherwise the basic assumption is violated. To correct this, there are some approaches I'll quickly show too, that you can design a filter that convert the Clowder wavelet to a minimum phase equivalent. Even the processing algorithm also will have this option. But what happens if you try to do anything with the wavelet, it will enhance some type of the noise. Like here, the Brittle has reported that they reported a significant amount of side lobe reverberations, and many times these effects are not seen directly on the traces unless you go and see the amplitude spectrum of the data. So it's better not to meddle with the wavelet. Other approach is to apply a zero phase inverse filter to remove KT to remove the effect of Clowder wavelet, and which is followed by a minimum phase deconvolution to get the information on the Earth's response, the Earth's reflectivity. But many times when you're trying to remove the KT, you will have the problem with the division, which will sometimes you will have zero. So you will have an unstable operator. So any division in the frequency domain and all, it becomes very complicated. And again, this is not advisable unless it is really needed, because the kind of noise it will impose, will not be able to understand that what kind of noise it is bringing in the traces. So it is easier to remove the noises we know from the traces rather than adding the noises which we do not understand. So another solution what we have done in our group is the application of the frequency domain sweep deconvolution. Now you can see that till now what I discussed was the cross correlation of the geophone response with the sweep, and that's how all this problem was happening. Now what if there is a method which can remove the sweep directly in frequency domain just by division, and there is no need of any kind of this complicated procedure? It looks simple, but it works also. I'll show you, but there are certain issues with this method also. Again, this is the same equation which I had been showing, that you have the seismic trace, which is the convolution of Earth's reflectivity, impulse response, the sweep, and then addition of noise. Now you take it to the frequency domain. Here, whenever I talk about the frequency domain, always Fourier transform is word is used, because that is the simplest and fastest way to do it. Fastest, maybe I should not say, but most common way to do it. But you can use any other algorithm for transformation to the frequency domain. That's okay. So if you take that equation to the frequency domain, it can be written like this. This probably you all know. Now the aim to remove the sweep is to divide the frequency response of the sweep from that equation. So the equation will look like this, where we have divided the entire equation with the recorded sweep. Here you note that we have not used the theoretical sweep. Here we have used the recorded sweep, because recorded sweep is the signal which actually goes inside the earth to convolve with the earth's different layers, and then a recorded response comes. So that's why here, while using the division, we have used the um, recorded sweep instead of palette sweep. That is not required here. But here one assumption is that spectrum of the sweep is exactly same as the recorded sweep, and that can be assumed here. That will not make much difference in this case. But as I said earlier, that any division in frequency domain causes certain problems, because there will be always an issue with the stability factor. And there are ways to handle that, you can use some kind of what to say, to add some more values in the to increase the stability in the denominator. I'll show an example. Or the better way is to use a bandpass filter that can be applied to attenuate the noise outside the frequency range which is being used in the sweep. So this mostly affect the noises which are coming out of the swept frequency range and which are not desired. So that is the easier way to do to remove this type of noises which you are facing due to the division in frequency domain. But the stability factor also can be used. I will show this one example quickly, that you can just use a kind of mu which will damp. It is a kind of damping the values, and then it will try to stabilize your blowing off of the x omega. But I would suggest that one can still go with the bandpass filtering if that works. And especially when we are working in a low frequency domain, we are not into very high frequency. Say high frequency, when I say, it is beyond maybe 60 hertz or so. And the low frequency are like, because we are into high resolution seismic, so all these 50, 60 hertz, 20 hertz, 40 hertz, these all are low for us. but whatever is beyond 60 hertz or so, that becomes the higher frequencies or higher frequencies for us. So if you are in the low frequency range, maybe 20 hertz, 30 hertz, 40 hertz, it is safe to use this the band limited option. There is no need to go for the stability factor. Now, this method has an advantage over the cross correlation because just by division, the entire sweep is removed and it becomes independent of any type of sweep you use. So, what sweep I have shown you in the picture is a linear sweep where just with the time delay, different frequency components are coming. Many times, what happens, you need a nonlinear sweep. And the cross correlation method is highly dependent on the kind of sweep you use. So, if your suppose your sweep is changing for any reason from one point to other point, the cross correlated output in the same area will be different for you. So that is very undesirable thing in the processing. So that's why we are preferring this frequency domain sweep deconvolution. But having said that, I will show quickly this synthetic case where you see the left side panel is all in the time domain and the right side one is all in the frequency domain. You see that if there is no issue with the Earth's minimum phase filter, which can be like a synthetic case, the FDSD and cross correlation output are not very different. You can see the right side panel, the second and third panel of the right side. The amplitude spectrum of FDSD with bandpass filter and the cross correlation output are not very different. And the kind of noise it is coming in the cross correlation, that can be, I mean, so we can you live with that noise. So it's not really a big deal. So if you are in the low frequency domain where the minimum phase filter is not making that much difference, you can you can stick to the cross correlation with the pilot sweep, not with the recorded sweep. So we were also trying to modify the processing flows to incorporate this deconvolution, but since I do not have much time, I'll just quickly go to the main result, where all of you know that in any processing sequence, we need the deconvolution, and which comes at quite later stage in the after doing lot of noise processing and all. But what effect the wavelet, the clouder wavelet, whether it is coming from the pilot or recorded, what effect it will have on the deconvolution? When experiment was done, and I'll show you the result, that this is after doing the deconvolution. I hope that you know what is the difference between now this deconvolution, what is being used in the standard processing flow, with the vibrosis deconvolution, which I discussed earlier. That was just to get us the wavelet, right? Now here, these type of deconvolutions are used either to enhance the resolution of the reflection, or to remove the multiple, or in general the noise in as a part of noise processing algorithm. So what we have seen, that if we use the frequency domain sweep deconvol data and then run a predictive deconvolution on that, it will give the better results, especially if you see the highlighted box in the deeper reflectors. You see those are becoming more clear, which is not that clear in the section. And again, as I said, that sometimes these type of noises you don't really see in the sections unless you see the amplitude spectrum and then try to analyze the amplitudes, try to quantify something. Sometimes you don't see in the traces those things unless you start quantifying the things. So what I am trying to say here is the basic correlation process. If you don't do that, and you are doing just the FDSD algorithm, you are using that FDSD algorithm to get rid of the wavelet from the recorded data, and straight away if you are applying the predictive deconvolution, your data improves, and especially for deeper section. Another study which was not done by us has also concluded something like this, that before they did not say that you do not do the cross correlation, because their aim was to not to discuss the frequency domain sweep deconvolution. They were trying to show the effect of cross correlation. But what they have also shown that if you do the predictive deconvolution before cross-correlating the data, it will improve the results in the large offset. So predictive deconvolution is definitely better, and we for the especially for the vibrosis data, we will ask you to anyone to avoid the spiking deconvolution. Here in the traces it is not clear, but the if you look into the of course, this is the reflection trend plot. It again says the same thing. I'll skip this. If you look into the concept of that, the predictive deconvolution, it is based on the optimum winner filter, where you can design any filter depending upon your output. You need not to force the data to generate a spike. And even if you want to enhance the resolution, the spikiness of the data, it can be controlled by prediction error filter. That's possible. You can have a spiky, but may not be the exact spike. But what spiking deconvolution does is like it asks for a perfect resolution because it is strictly the inverse of the wavelet. And since in the vibrosis case, the input wavelet is not minimum phase, the spiking deconvolution doesn't convert it to perfect zero like spike, and this enhances lot of noise in the data, sometimes which becomes difficult to control that type of noise. Of course, you can do a lot of filtering and all, but the best way is to avoid the spiking deconvolution, which is not means I would not recommend the spiking deconvolution in for the vibrosis data. So that's all, and I like to thank especially my dissertation student who was in Avnish, who has actually done the predictive deconvolution and spectrum deconvolution work. But I do not have time to discuss all those results. But that's a special thank to him and the organizers. So thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for delivering the lecture. Now I think we can ask the participants to ask their questions if they have any.
Hello,
All
ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
slides, yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Uh, ma'am, I have a question related to this topic, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, as far as I can make out, if you have, I mean,
Uh,
upstream and downstream, at some moment, you have the ghosts will be definitely be, I mean, ghost fleets will be there. How you encounter, counter that thing? It will be creating harmonics, as you said. Your this method, how it tackles that?
I could
And
not. Sorry, could not hear that voice is.
Akash,
Can you write
voice is
write the
voice is
yeah,
okay,
breaking
not
too
madam.
much.
yeah,
Akash, please write your
yeah.
question.
So all the slides were clear, or there was some interruption because I did not follow for a few, I think minutes or so, 1 or 2 minutes
No,
in
ma'am.
that.
Slides were totally clear, and the video was awesome.
Okay, then that's fine. There is, I think, one question already in the chat box.
No, ma'am. That one I have posted that one for
Okay,
you.
okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Uh, okay, there is one question that in one case only P wave is generated using vibrator, and in one case S-wave only. How is that? I did not show the other vibrator which generates S-wave, and the vibrator which generates S-wave, it will also generate the P-wave. But the figure what I have shown is the vibrator which will generate only P-wave. The other one I did not show here. So the base plate what is shown, it moves in the vertical also to generate the P wave, and then it can move in the horizontal direction also to generate both type of S waves.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
Yes.
you go for the feedback loop
Hello,
search.
ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Or you can type, it's better because there is lot of
Hello.
distortion coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Deepika, please speak.
Hello, ma'am. Can you explain the term harmonic ghosts in vibrosis?
What I have shown here is the harmonic distortion, not really the ghost. So
No,
ghost
ma'am,
is
hello.
hello.
Yes, Deepika, please speak.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I tried to study about vibrosis, and there was this term harmonic ghost, and I did not understand that term. Can you explain it?
Well, I'm sorry I did not come across that, but what did they say in that? Is it like the normal ghost reflection what we discuss in terms of multiples or
No, ma'am. It was
No,
specifically
ma'am.
for vibrosis, and it said that in upsweep, the when we correlate the sweeps in upsweep case there is a negative time correlation, and in downsweeps it has a positive time correlation. Therefore, we use upsweeps in fibrosis. Ma'am, I did not understand this whole concept.
uh, okay, you know that is a little difficult to explain like that because this how do we why do we generate the upsweep and why do we generally yes what it is written is correct that yes this happens and that's why we generate the mostly we generate the upsweep signal and that these are for two reasons not just for this ghost thing other thing is it is easier for the mechanical engineering side also for the vibrator to start with a low and then attain the peak maximum force and then operate at a kind of plateau type of region and then come to the higher frequencies side. If you start that directly at the higher frequencies, it causes sometimes that breakdown happens. So there are several other things, not just the ghost thing, but probably I'll not be able to explain you directly here that how that happens.
Okay,
Hello,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, when we are using dynamite source, if the our source wavelet is mixed phase wavelet, then how can we convert into minimum phase wavelet?
See, in when you have a mixed phase signal, there are these phase shift algorithms available in the either in the processing software or you can write your own code. That can be done. So even for the clouder wavelet also, it is possible to introduce a phase in that. So any phase shift algorithm will do. But what happens is when you do that, the it might change something undesired. It not just introduces the phase, it might enhance some kind of noise, which you will not understand to pick in the traces. So if the order of noise is less, it's okay. You do that. Sometimes people do that. Very often do that to use the minimum phase reconvolutions. But if the order of noise is very high and you will see that the noise is enhanced after doing this type of step, then it is not advisable. So it is not like that it cannot be done. It just depends upon that how noisy your data is.
Okay. One more thing, ma'am. By
Yes.
using predictive deconvolution, how can we predict multiples? Only multiples, not primary reflections.
See, the main job of predictive deconvolution, especially in the marine data processing, is the prediction of multiples. So that's how this predictive deconvolution was came in place in the processing. What you do is, as I said, that predictive deconvolution is nothing but just the optimum winner filter. In that, you have one input. You already have that, and of course again the you had to assume that it is a minimum phase input. Now your output in case of spiking you will know it is a spike that is 100 something like that, but in case of multiples your output is a time advanced version of the primary. So you understand what is your primary and then you design your output matrix in as a time advanced version of that, and for that you should know that from what layers you are expecting the multiples. That information is really very important in using the predictive deconvolution. So if your output is the time advanced version of the primary, you already know the output coefficients. and then just use the inverse filter to compute the predictive deconvolution coefficients and use that for this multiple suppression. And that is the basic concept of the predictive deconvolution while using for multiples.
Okay, ma'am. For this, we have to first know subsurface reflectivity by some
Yes.
well-logged data.
No, no, not necessary. Like, see, you already, when you are analyzing, especially this comes in case of marine, you know at what depth, approximately you will know at what depth the sea bottom multiples will come. You will have some idea of that. So accordingly, you will design your prediction, the output of the time advanced version of the primary, and then you can design your predictive deconvolution filter for that. So you don't need a log data for that. You just try to understand that at how this that what depth, from what depth the multiples are expected.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
And one more thing I would suggest that if you are doing for the deeper ones, whenever you design the predictive deconvolution operators, try to look for the longer offsets, because many times I have seen practically, then when you design the predictive deconvolution operator using the near offset data, it doesn't kill the multiples properly in the deeper part of that. So that you should be careful. And of course, there is a limitation also with the predictive deconvolution. If it is too deep, then after a certain range, you won't be able to predict also. So all those uncertainties are of course there.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, actually, I was asking ki when actually what the recorded sweep is actually going to the ground and convert with the reflectivity series in order to get the recorded wave,
Yes.
right? So, ma'am, I was wondering ki if why we are not getting the good results in having the cross correlation with the recorded recorded sweep with the record length. Why means why we are getting the good result with the pilot sweep, but the fact is we are actually convolving the reflectivity series with the recorded sweep.
Yes, that's a very good question. So, in fact, before recommending pilot for that, we also thought about that. But what is happening? The kind of noise it is imposing is you have seen that. I don't. Maybe you remember that, right? I don't want to again start that slide sharing and all. So you have seen that there is a lot of noise in that, and it is actually corrupting the entire seismogram. So to get rid of that, we are avoiding the use of recorded sweep. That's the only reason. But yes, if your vibrator mechanical system, if you can get in place, and if it is not too off from the theoretical sweep, then it's fine. You can go ahead with that.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have one doubt in the feedback circuit. Can you show the slide again?
Well, there was nothing much in that. Just a minute, I can show. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, my question is that what is the post on the ground by the vibrator? With reference to that, we had the phase correcting of the sweep input. Ma'am, why this is so? Because what we are pushing in the ground, that is already recorded in our all the geophones. But we are correcting with respect to that signal in our input sweep. Ma'am, why so?
I did not understand, I think, what you are asking. What you are asking is like we are impounding that base plate, it's moving on the ground, right? And that signal is going inside the ground, and then we are recording the Earth's response on the geophone. So can you repeat your
Yes,
question?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And from that geophone signal, we are just phase comparing with the input sweep. Ma'am, why so?
Okay, so when the base plate when the base plate emits a signal, the sound wave which goes inside the earth, that will have a shape, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So we are discussing about that sound wave which is going from the base plate to the means as a signal, emitted signal. That is the sweep. Now that sweep, what is going from the base plate, it is also recorded in the because we cannot see the base plate moving and know that what type of signal it is emitting. We have to record it somewhere that what base plate is emitting, what type of signal. So that is recorded when it is moving in that system itself. So that is the recorded sweep. It is not the data which comes back after the reflection from the different layers of the earth and which is recorded by the geophone.
But ma'am, for the next sweep, you were using the compensator with that geophone record, previous recorded signal and the pilot sweep signal.
See, pilot is just given as an input to the this machine to generate a kind of signal which that base plate is moving. Okay, after that, that pilot has no role. Now whatever is doing, whatever vibrator is doing, it will be recorded as a recorded sweep, and then we do not change that. Once the input is given, it will keep on vibrating, it will complete the work, and then the maybe in next survey the sweep will be changed.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the questions are over. If there are some more questions, you can ask ma'am to by email. Ma'am,
I just one thing that someone asked about that ghost one. Can that question be sent to me by email? Because I could not answer that question, because a part of that, honestly, I do not understand that how that ghost harmonics means how they explain it. So maybe I'll look into that, because I never looked into that, never faced that type of problem.
Okay, ma'am, we will
So
ask for
can
that.
uh, yeah, just send me that question in email. I will get back to you.
Okay,
I'll
ma'am.
also discuss with our mechanical engineer. I'll get back to you on that. In addition to that, if any other question is there, you can send me. But give me at least 2-3 days time to respond.
Sure, ma'am, we will
okay,
ask
ma'am.
for that. Also, ma'am has to attend another meeting, so we are very sorry to end the question answer session here. And you can, as ma'am has already mentioned, you can ask her other questions on her email ID, and we will provide you that later. Okay, ma'am.
It is better that if one of you coordinates that if all question comes in one paper, it will be easy. If different mails come, sometimes one might be missed or something will be answered, something will not. So one of you can collect and then send me. That will be easy.
Okay, ma'am, I will ask
Uh,
Vishal Pandey to
oh,
do that. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
okay. I request for this all the participants who have doubts, send their doubts to SEG BHU official email, and I will forward that mail.
Okay, Vishal. Okay, ma'am, thank you for
Okay.
your giving your precious time